We're going to introduce our next speaker, who's Melanie Oliveira. Melanie's in the 4th year of the PsyD program at Adler University, where she's completing her dissertation research and her practicum training on the use of entheogens and psychedelics for psychological healing and the integration of spirituality and spiritual healing practices into Western modes of psychology. Melanie Oliveira.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much for the introduction. So as she said, my name is Melanie Oliveira, and I am a PsyD student at Adler University in Vancouver. And today I have the great pleasure of presenting on my dissertation research. And my outside dissertation committee member, Dr. Gerald Thomas, he is here in the audience today. So thank you so much for being here and supporting me through this crazy, awesome process. So as the title suggests, I know this is the longest title in the whole conference. So if I don't get any recognition for my research, I'm hoping I get an award for this. Anyways, so the ultimate goal and purpose of the study was to develop some preliminary guidelines for mental health clinicians so they know how they can better understand both the therapeutic potentials of ayahuasca, but also what are the risks, and ultimately best provide both preparation and integration practices for clients who are using ayahuasca. And ultimately, the hope of these guidelines is to really ensure that risks are minimized while enhancing the therapeutic outcome for clients who are accessing this medicine. Okay. So why is this research important? I'll discuss some of the rationale first for the study. Then I'll go over the purpose and methodology, some preliminary findings, and I'm hoping that there'll be enough time for some discussion and Q&A at the end. Okay. So why do we feel that study on this topic was important? The first reason is despite the illegal status of ayahuasca in Canada and other countries, its healing and spiritual reputation has led to increasing numbers of people traveling to the Amazon to access this medicine, going to retreats, for example. And nowadays, as most of us know, people may not need to travel anymore. Ceremonies are becoming more and more available in urban centers throughout North America. And even Canadians themselves, they are completing apprenticeships right now so they can facilitate these ceremonies on their own with clients. And so given that there is this increasing population accessing the medicine and wanting to be a part of it, this argues that further research is needed into the efficacy and the safety and acceptability of this medicine overall. So the second reason is we see that for some individuals, for some Westerners, it can be difficult for these individuals to process their integration experience, their ayahuasca experience, sorry. It can be confusing or disorienting as well, especially when appropriate post-ceremony support systems are not in place. And this can be problematic because, as many of us know, although there is a therapeutic potential within the ceremony itself, many authors will argue that we need to have a proper integration process thereafter to truly integrate the experience and to try to have a larger therapeutic outcome. And additionally, what's problematic is if there isn't that post-ceremony supports, there is a risk of making existent maladies even worse and introducing new trauma as well. As some of us know, the experience can be painful, traumatic, and frightening. And so if Western users don't have the appropriate integration process and preparation beforehand, they may experience decompensation, existential crises, and psychological breakdowns. And so given that reason as well, again, more people are arguing for proper screening and pre- and post-ceremony supports and to establish guidelines. Such as Tricia here, he said there is a concern about how this growing phenomenon could harm those Westerners who partake in the ayahuasca brew unless guidelines are created to protect their physical, psychological, and spiritual health. Okay. And so the third reason, despite its growing reputation, the majority of mental health clinicians in the mainstream field, they have no clue what ayahuasca is. And when I talk about doing this study, a lot of people think, you know, I'm a hippie and I just want to get people high, and they don't really understand what this medicine is about. And a part of that is because they don't understand it and they don't understand the benefits and the risks, they're not really familiar as to how best support clients who really want to access this as a healing modality. And this could be problematic because according to some authors, good integration is believed to be best supported by pre and post psychotherapy, post-ceremony psychotherapy. And so there appears to be that there is this need for mental health clinicians in the mainstream to get an understanding and acceptability around this medicine and how they can support users in a safe manner as well. So given those reasons and in response to current limitations in the field, the purpose of the study was really to investigate the 4 following questions. So what are the subjective experiences and healing effects of ayahuasca used in a ceremonial context? What are the risks of its use? How can clients best prepare for and integrate their ayahuasca experience to attain and sustain therapeutic outcomes? And how can mental health clinicians best support clients before and after ceremony? So the ultimate goal, again, I'm going to keep saying this, is really just to inform the development of evidence-based guidelines so clinicians can best support clients who want to use ayahuasca for therapeutic purposes. Okay. So the methodology. We wanted to recruit ceremony facilitators and ayahuasca users from various traditions, such as the Shipibo, the Santo Daime, and presently all of our participants are from the Shipibo population. But nonetheless, as we continue our research, we are still looking to pair with some individuals from the Santo Daime faith, so we can look at some of the preparation and integration practices that they use as well, and what can be helpful therapeutically. So overall, we had semi-structured interviews, and these were used to qualitatively assess the professional and the personal experiences of these individuals that facilitate and attend ayahuasca ceremonies. They were basically asked about the benefits and risks of ayahuasca, which preparation and integration practices they've used, and which ones they feel influence and how it influences treatment outcomes. And we also wanted to ask them what recommendations they would make to mental health professionals to best support clients. And thematic analysis was used and is still being used to analyze and report some of the core themes in the data set. Okay, so some preliminary findings regarding the therapeutic effects. No surprise here, spirituality and spiritual benefits was reported. So deeper, more authentic connection to the self, understanding the meaning of life or what is their life purpose, and unity and connectedness was another area. Regarding some personal and interpersonal benefits, we see that individuals reported having a better understanding and accepting of themselves. So these are the aspects that they say were negative qualities of them and positive qualities. They also had lots of insights regarding how to improve themselves and how to improve their lives. So if they were at a crossroads, for example, in their career or relationships and just in general, they found that they got some insight into what was best for them to reach their authentic self. Interpersonal benefits. Forgiveness is also something that came up, this idea of spontaneous forgiveness. One of my participants said that she just spontaneously forgave her mother for all this trauma throughout her development. And it is commonly reported that, we see these strengthening of relationships and healing relationship trauma as well. And that is really neatly tied into the forgiveness piece. Okay. So psychoemotional benefits as well. There's a lot of research on this, and we see that it's been helpful regarding trauma, PTSD, phobia, addictions, and these addictions, of course, it's any negative habitual kind of pattern or behavior. Depression, anxiety came up as well. And just this ability to soften the defenses that we have. A lot of people felt like they were really guarded and they had their heart guarded. And now they're able to just kind of open up their heart. And there was this facilitation of trust as well. Sorry, it's hard for me to see my time. Okay, so some physical benefits. One of the ceremony facilitators mentioned chronic fatigue, autoimmune illness, rheumatoid arthritis, and digestive disorders. He explained that unfortunately Western medicine, they have very few answers for these illnesses, but ayahuasca has been able to shed some light as to how we can help individuals suffering from some of these illnesses. So really, overall, we see that a quadrilateral model of healing is the best approach to really take when we're looking at how ayahuasca can help individuals. It spans, of course, from the biopsychosocial and spiritual model. And I think that's something that mental health clinicians need to keep in mind too. It's, the biopsychosocial model is not enough. We need to incorporate spirituality as well. Okay, so regarding the preparations, so these, again, participants were asked what preparations they've used and how they felt the preparations really supported their therapeutic experiences. And the results that I'm presenting right now is what they gathered. So first is screening. Screening, as many of us know, it's really important because it helps to protect against some risks. So looking at the medical and the mental health status of the individuals to make sure that they are appropriate candidates for attending the ceremony and accessing this medicine for therapeutic purposes. Another factor that, this was a really common, predominant theme, is that the facilitator themselves, they really provide a significant experience, or the potential to provide a very significant experience and therapeutic outcome. So it's important to investigate and develop relationships with the ceremony facilitators beforehand, and just kind of ask them questions about their training, if they have a lineage of knowledge behind them. You want to make sure they're acting with integrity as well, because having those qualities, we see that facilitators are better able to safely navigate the ceremony and take individuals more deeply into their own experience so they can have some healing outcome out of that. They really just provide the safe containment throughout the entire ceremony. Intention setting is also a preparation that seems to influence therapeutic outcomes. So individuals said that when they were prepared and they had this intention, they felt like they were more committed to the process entirely and they really knew what they were going in for. And that really helped them get some kind of meaning afterwards. Another important piece is following dietary and lifestyle guidelines. This is, of course, just to make sure that nothing you ingest is going to have a negative reaction with ayahuasca in the ceremony, because it can make for a very unpleasant experience. Working with a therapist and a shaman was also reported to be a really helpful preparation tool. I'll speak more about the therapist piece afterwards, but looking at shamans, the works that people could do with shamans, shamanic journeying was something that came up, and they believe that this is suggested, this is helpful because clients can better able practice going into an altered state of consciousness, which is helpful in the ayahuasca experience, and they won't feel so fearful going into that, especially if this is their first time accessing the medicine. And some breathwork and mindfulness meditation practices. These really seem to be helpful because they help to regulate the nervous system. So when they are in a state of discomfort or just dysregulated in general, they'll have the tools already beforehand to really help them, guide them through that process during ceremony. Okay, so integration. Formal integration circles, the sharing of the stories afterwards had a huge impact on people being able to understand how the medicine is working for themselves and how it's working for others as well. And so it really helps people start to process the experience and what insights they're getting from it and how they can start to incorporate changes into their lives. Follow-up sessions with facilitators was also reported to being helpful. And creative writing and journaling was a great way for quite a few of the participants. So some would write poems, some would just write about their journey in general, and they felt like that was really helpful to piece the experience together and to better make sense of it and integrate it thereafter. Shamanic journeying, again, this has come up. Basically, they would do a journey back to something within ceremony if they felt like they had a difficult time understanding it. And so it provides them the opportunity to just kind of deepen or amplify what the area in their experience was so they can get better understanding from it. So therapy came up as well for integration practices after ceremony. One of the therapists who is also a facilitator in the study, she said that somatic therapy, like she personally had done more work on herself in 1 hour of somatic therapy than she did in the actual ceremony. And then having a referral list is important too. So we want to make sure that people are supported during their integration process, and everyone has their own individual way of being supported. Okay. So some pre-ceremony support. I am running out of time, unfortunately, so I'll try and go through these as best as I can. First, it's important to be really well informed about the healing modality of this medicine. Challenge the assumptions that you have and the biases that you have, especially mental health clinicians. It's really important for that. And of course, to respect the ceremony and the traditions with it as well. There must be great reverence held there. Screening is important, looking at bipolar disorder, mental history of psychosis, and family history too. There's head trauma. The mental status overall is important to assess to make sure these individuals are ready to go. Forming a clear intention. So what is it that you want to work on? What is it that you hope to get? And being, just acknowledging that you may not get what you want, but just to trust in the process that Mama Aya will give you what you need. Preparing for material is another piece. It's really important to look at the, kind of think about the unconscious material that might come up and start doing some preparation in processing that and working through that if you haven't already started doing that, that psychotherapy work. Regulation practices, so I mentioned this before, it's really important to help the individual learn how to calm their system down, their nervous system. And having having an integration plan earlier is important too. So you want to make sure that the client already has a couple of sessions thereafter the ceremony, so they're ready to work with you. And some post-ceremony supports. Oh, my apologies. Some post-ceremony supports. It's important to be open and non-judgmental. So the client is vulnerable and they might be upset or feel shamed about some of the material that's come up. So we really want to make sure that we are just really holding them with an open heart and open mind when they're discussing what's going on with them. And this was another part that really came up, is validating the unseen realms. So visions are not hallucinations. And this is, of course, something that it would be important for them to understand that when they are learning more about the medicine and the modality of healing that it offers. So, of course, don't label these as hallucinations. Just look at them as a way of addressing a symbolic meaning that's behind them. What is the symbolism behind them? What is the message that's being shared here? Processing their experience is also important. And as I mentioned before, it can be painful, it could be traumatic or frightening. So it's important for psychologists or mental health clinicians in general to be aware of that and help them process some of the repressed memories or the insights overall, whatever it was that came up. And to integrate it, that's important too. And referral list, as I mentioned before, psychologists and mental health clinicians, they are just one piece of the integration puzzle and the supportive puzzle. And so it is important that we develop an interdisciplinary team of professionals who are sensitive to this medicine and the needs of it. So everyone's integration process and healing process can really be individualized to them. And so overall, mental health clinicians, they can provide one area of support. And the challenge, though, is that we need to safely support clients. And the way to do that is we need better guidelines in place because, unfortunately, not many individuals understand how to help clients with this medicine. And so it's necessary that guidelines are made so we can minimize some of the risks. I still have a lot of time. Okay, thanks. And so it is important that these guidelines are made and evidence-based guidelines as well. We want to make sure that all of that is taken care of. And this is why, we're really excited to be a part of this research because, first of all, we're challenging some of the assumptions and the beliefs about ayahuasca in the mainstream medical field and mental health field. And there's a lot of people here that are doing similar work as well. I know Adam Snyder, I haven't had the opportunity to meet him yet, but he's presenting tomorrow on guidelines as well for clinicians. I know Olivia Marcus is also a doctoral research student completing her study on similar guidelines as well for mental health clinicians. So a lot of people are on board with this kind of research, and we think it's really important. Because overall, the real goal here is to make sure that people who want to access this medicine, that they can do so safely, and they can do so with the community support behind them. And that is, as I said, a multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary team of professionals to really make sure that they are well taken care of. Because that's the thing, we want to help people heal, and we want to minimize all the risks involved so the therapeutic potential is there and that it is maximized. So thank you. If anyone has any questions, if you can just line up behind the microphone, please.
Hi. I'm wondering if you asked about like formal closing rituals to ayahuasca ceremonies, and like what structures the ceremony facilitators had in place for afterwards.
Well, what's been so far from the data that I do have, a lot of people felt that the ceremony did have a significant impact in whether or not they had a good experience or not, and I mean that in a therapeutic experience or not. Regarding how the ceremony itself was structured, most of them felt that it really was important to have a formal beginning of the ceremony, so saying prayers to the medicine, passing along the medicine, discussing your intention. And throughout the ceremony itself, the Ikaros that's sung was really important too. And when they were closing the ceremony, having that integration piece was really important as well. So that formal closing of the circle where everyone can share their experience if they had wanted to. I've heard that there's some variations. Some ceremony leaders will limit how much time you have to share, and others don't really have that limitation on them. And it sounds like when people are given more time to share, they get more out of that. It helps them kind of validate their experience, what they went through, and to see that the medicine is helping other people as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Hi, does MAPS have a list of professionals that are willing to work with the integrative process, such as psychotherapists and all of those? Is there a directory for it?
I believe there is one. I'm not entirely certain of that.
It's on the MAPS website.
Okay, then I should look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm Gerald. I'm Melanie's outside committee member, and I just have a question for you, Melanie. So people here probably don't know what Adler is. Adler is Adler University from the Adler around the time that Freud was doing his work. And Adler's point was that you can't abstract the individual's mental health from the community's mental health. So I wonder, from that perspective, if you would share a little bit about what you're learning here.
Yeah, I think a lot of Adler's teachings really nicely align with ayahuasca because everyone says that although it's an individual experience, it's a collective experience, and it's a collective healing too. So, looking at the individual, how we can support them, we see that when we are in a community context where the community itself is supporting everyone, there's a lot of healing that can come out of that piece. So yeah, I think just being able to take care of the community and having all those supports in place just helps everyone on their own individual process, but also to help each other as well. I think everyone just wants to feel validated, wants to feel safe and loved, and when you have a supportive community like that, that's what happens, more therapeutic outcomes. Okay, thank you.